Hi. Hello. Hi. Do you wanna be on camera? Is that it? Do you wanna say hi to YouTube? Oh. Oh. Hi. Hello. Okay. Hi friends, and welcome back to another video. I'm Tati, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in June. June was a very successful reading month. A lot happened. I accomplished a lot, so let's just get into it. So, June. June was Pride Month. June was also when the Olympic Games readathon was happening. So my TBR was originally based on the Olympic Games, and as it turned out, it turned out pretty gay. Literally I think I read one fully straight book this entire month. So yeah, no, I read 11 books. Most of them had like gay characters, gay themes, at least one gay relationship, you know. This month turned out pretty rainbow, which I'm pretty psyched about. It was a really great reading month. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so I read 11 books in the month of June, and these are what they were and what I rated them and what I thought about them. Get ready for many rants. I began the month by reading The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic. I think that's how you pronounce her last name, I'm not sure. So I did not know this book series existed until maybe like 2 years ago when I started watching BookTube. I was watching one of Kat's videos and she was talking about it, and I was like, what is this thing? And yeah, that's how I got introduced into it. And like a few weeks ago, my friend Taylor told me about how the book, The Foxhole Court, was on sale on Amazon, and so I bought the Kindle version. And I also bought the other two just while I was at it. So I decided to read this series that I don't know much about. I've only read the first one, and I'll probably read the other two at some point or another. And I gotta say, I don't know how I feel about this book. I gave it a 2.5 stars, and yeah, it's a thing. I also read this for the Olympic Games readathon. This was meant to cover my Hermes, like Hades Hermes prompt for sports, because it features Eggsy, the made-up sport. This book is about this guy, Neil Jostin, that gets recruited into the Palmetto Foxes, a team that plays Eggsy. They're supposedly a team made up of misfits, and for some reason they think Neil will fit right in. And so he's on the run from his father, apparently, who's in jail. I think he's supposed to be some sort of mafioso, but I'm not sure because this book left a lot more questions than it left answers. And Neil decides to accept against all reason and things that he's been taught to do throughout the years. And so he decides to join this team, which is dysfunctional as all fuck. All the characters have the weirdest interactions with each other that I've ever seen, and it was just, I don't know, it was just very weird. It was a very weird book all around, and I have to say that the ending was very unsatisfying. I was left with way more questions than I was left with answers, and I understand like setting up your sequel and whatnot, but this was just like fully banking on that sequel. I was just left unsatisfied and with more questions than I had answers. So yeah, this book was a 2.5 for me. It was not that great. It wasn't, I've read worse things. I have read worse things, which is why I gave it a 2.5, because I was entertained throughout most of it. But I don't know. I feel very weird about this book, so I don't know. Maybe I need to finish reading the series for me to be able to form a full opinion on it. But it was just very weird. It was a very weird book. The second book I read this month was Heartstopper Volume 1. by Alice Oseman. This is my first Alice Oseman work, and I think I'm kind of obsessed. So this follows the story of Nick and Charlie, two schoolmates who become friends because they are put into the same class together. Charlie is in 10th year and Nick is in 11th year, and they sort of become friends, and Charlie is openly gay, and so as their friendship progresses, Nick starts to like realize that he might have feelings for Charlie. And it's the cutest thing. I'm usually not a super big fan of friends to lovers because I do like some sort of like push and pull. I really like the friction that like good enemies to lovers can bring around. So I'm not usually a fan of friends to lovers because I think it's too easy sometimes. I don't know. But this I absolutely adored. I enjoyed so much. It actually made me like really happy. I've read a bunch of other graphic novels before, but this one just, I don't know, it like sticks out in my mind. And I really enjoyed it. I'd heard really good things about it already, and so this was actually a gift from my godmother. And around the same time that she ordered it for me, I was ordering new post-it tabs, and I didn't just want to order post-it tabs, and so I decided to order the second volume of Heartstopper, which was a really good choice because I read it literally right after I finished Heartstopper volume 1, and I really wish I had ordered volume 3 as well, which I have to order at some point because I am dying to read it. If it wasn't clear, this was a 5-star read for me all around. This will come as a surprise to no one. The third book that I picked up this month was Heartstopper Volume 2. In this, we continue to see the progression of Charlie and Nick's relationship as they take things to the next step. They sort of start dating, and Nick struggles a little bit more with like discovering and figuring out his sexuality, and all around loved it. It was super cute, super fluffy. It was everything that I didn't know I needed, and I just had a great time with it. Again, 5-star read for me. It was just a fun time. It was just a really fun time, and I really loved it. It was lovely, and I enjoyed it so much. I have nothing but praise for this book. The fourth book that I picked up this month was actually an audiobook that I got through Scribd, and it was Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. My dudes, I am obsessed with Elizabeth Acevedo's work, okay? I love it so much. So when I went into this book, I did not know a lot about it because I generally try to go into books like sort of blind. I like know general synopsis, but I don't know a lot. And I don't think I even read the synopsis for this one because I just saw that it was Elizabeth Acevedo, and after Poet X, I trust her with my life, and I was just like, I don't know what this is about, but I'm gonna listen to it anyway. So I did. And so basically, brief synopsis on this. Clap When You Land is about these two girls who experience the same traumatic event, and the book deals a lot with grief, family, and friendship. And so at the beginning, you don't know how these two main characters are connected. One of them lives in New York, the other one lives in Santo Domingo. And so it is throughout the progression of the book that you find out how these two girls are connected. I'm not gonna go farther than that in my description of the book because I just don't want to spoil it for you, because I had the stupidest look on my face when I found out, because I was just so shocked at how it was that they were connected. I thought that maybe they were friends or just complete strangers, but they actually had like a very important tie between them, even though they didn't know what it was. And I just don't want to spoil that. But yeah, this book deals a lot on grief and getting over the death of a loved one. It also deals a lot with family and what we see as family, and who we consider family and how we treat our family, even those that we don't necessarily didn't come into our family in a normal way. And it also deals on On a lesser note, but still very importantly, with sexuality. One of the main characters, Jahaira, she is a lesbian and she has a very loving relationship with her girlfriend Dre. And throughout the book, as Jahaira is wading through this pool of grief that she's currently experiencing, we also get some insight into how she came to be with her girlfriend, how she discovered who she was, and it was very amazing because I loved to see their relationship because it was already established before the events of the book take place, and it's just so wonderful to see like these two women who have a very strong, very loving relationship just like stick to like by each other's sides throughout all of it. When Jahaira goes through this like traumatic experience, Dre is like by her side the entire way, and even though the novel doesn't revolve around their relationship, it's still so wonderful to see such a loving, wonderful relationship between these two young women. So yeah, it was just perfection. You can probably guess what I rated this. I rated it a 5 out of 5 stars. I think I'm obsessed with Elizabeth Acevedo, and I will probably read anything she puts out into the world because it's just so good, so good. I have zero complaints. Also, I want to point out that the thing that Elizabeth Acevedo did in The Poet X, which I really loved, was her blending of prose and verse, and her blend of English and Spanish was also present in this book, and I absolutely loved it. I think that more authors should try to blend English and Spanish throughout the entirety of their books. As a person who is bilingual and I know both English and Spanish, it's so important to me to see the merging of those two languages in books because I don't see it very often, and I'm someone who speaks both languages regularly, thinks in both languages, reads in both languages, and to see such a merging of two very important parts of myself in a book is just, it's everything. It's everything. I have no words to describe it because it's everything I could hope for. The 5th book I picked up this month was actually not something that I picked out. So I posted a little poll on my Twitter asking people to vote on what audiobook I should listen to next, and the selection won, so I listened to it. It was okay. Anyway, this book is about this girl, America Singer, who lives in a sort of dystopian universe in which like the United States is now called Illya, and the population is divided by castes, and there's like 7 castes, I think it is, and she's like down to the lowest. I think she's like a 5, and she's like a singer, something like that. And the highest caste is first caste, and that's like royalty because they have a monarchy now, and so like 1s are royal family members, and then 6s or 7s, whatever the bottom one was, are servants. And 5s, which is what I believe America belonged to, are artists. And so anyway, the prince of Illya, Maxon, becomes of age, and so now they're holding the selection in which like girls from all the castes get to apply basically to date him so that he can date and choose his future wife, right? And so they choose 35 girls to go to the selection, and America originally doesn't want to apply, even though her mother wants her to, but then her shitty boyfriend, oh, what's his name? Aspen, that's her name. Her boyfriend sort of like makes her go out for the selection. Like, well, he didn't make her, but he encouraged her to go out for the selection, and then he broke up with her. But that's besides the point. Anyway, she goes to the selection, and she kind of like strikes up a friendship with this Prince Maxon. Anyway, point is that this book, I don't know, most of my friends decided, teamed together to make me read this. because they've all read it. And so I listened to the audiobook. I listened to it in a day or two, something like that, I don't know. And it was just okay. It seems very out of step with everything that I was reading this month, especially because this is like the one purely straight book that I read this month. And I don't know, it was not my thing. It was not for me. I'm not gonna read the sequels because I kind of know how it ends. I mean, it's kind of obvious how it's gonna end, so I don't feel any need to put myself through that, especially because I didn't like really jive with any of the characters. I liked Maxon quite a bit. I think he's soft and sweet, just like Prince Henry in Red, White, and Royal Blue, so I liked him. But other than that, didn't really care much for any of the characters. I found America really whiny and stupid, so I don't know. Probably not gonna, most definitely I'm not gonna read the sequels. And I gave this a 2.5 stars out of 5. It wasn't a great read, it wasn't a terrible read, it was just like, it really just was not for me. Yeah, okay. El sexto libro que yo leí este mes was We Set the Dark on Fire by Taylor K. Mejia. This book is a sort of like dystopian type, yeah. It's a little bit dystopian-y, but not fully. So it's set in this island called Medio, and there's this myth about the sun god that takes 2 wives, his primera and his segunda, and like the primera is supposed to be like his like public wife, I guess you could say, and she like handles his schedule and is like his partner, like his intellectual equal or something like that. And then his segunda is supposed to be like his home wife, and she is the wife that rears children, and I don't know, cooks, cleans, stuff like, she doesn't really clean, they have servants, but she arranges meals. That's what I'm looking for. And so the book centers around Daniela Vargas. She is a primera that is now graduating the Medio School for Girls, and she's about to be married to like one of the top dudes in the government who's like being groomed by his parents to become president one day. And so they have this very rigid like system in place, and she is like kind of an illegal because she's from like, the island has like this border wall around the island, and she's from like the outside part of the border wall, which is still in the island, but like, yeah. And basically this centers around Daniela as she becomes a full-fledged primera, and how she handles her husband Mateo, who's a douche, a dick, an asshole. I don't know, I could go on for a while. And how she handles the relationship, the very antagonistic relationship that she has with her husband's segunda, Carmen. So, this was a sapphic enemies to lovers, and I did not know that going in. I did not know that's what I was signing up for, and if I'd known it before, I would have read this book sooner. This book was so good. It does the same thing that Elizabeth Acevedo does, in which it blends Spanish and English so beautifully together that I was like reading sentences that were half written in Spanish, and I was living for it. It was so good. And then the plot of this, I should say that also, like, this is sapphic enemies to lovers turn rebels. These girls turn into badass rebels, and I was living for it. I'm not describing this book very well, but it's fine. This is so good. It's so good, and being in Dani's head the entire time is so amazing, because you see Dani's struggle between wanting to remain a good, faithful primera, and then her evolution into becoming a full-fledged rebel is so good. And it's the journey of the book is amazing, and how her relationship with Carmen grows and evolves, and Dani allows herself to accept that she really likes this girl, and like allows herself to like let her in and like drop her mask as a primera. Oh, I can never talk about books that I like coherently or well, for that matter, and this is clear in my description of this book. I loved it so much. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars, and I cannot wait to read the conclusion to this duology. I'm hoping against all hope that I will have time to read it in July, because I am obsessed with it. Also, I was reading this for the Olympic Games readathon. This was my book for the dark cover. I know it has color in it, but the rest is black. Leave me be. I really wanted to read this book. The 7th book that I picked up this month was City of Ashes. You might have seen me talk about the fact that I was reading this on Twitter, because we had our live show this month for this book. So I reread City of Ashes after I'd already read it in March, but you know, I gotta reread it to like refresh for the live show, like I did with City of Bones. I took copious notes, and I gotta say, my stance on it is pretty much the same as it was in March. I greatly enjoyed this much more than I enjoyed City of Bones, but did I care about the overall big overarching plot? No. No. Was I super invested in the tiny details and subplot of Magnus and Alex's relationship? Yes. 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 Yeah. I came for the gays. This is not news to anyone. So yeah, this is probably the out of all the books that I read this month, so like the straightest is the selection. This unfortunately goes second, but still, it was so good. I actually really like this, and I'd still stay to 3 stars though, because it doesn't really have that much of a plot, and also Valentine's a shit villain, and I had to read too much Jace. Although I do gotta say, in this second read through, I kind of liked Clary a little bit more. Not much, but I liked her slightly more. I thought she was a little less whiny, a little less annoying. Still does not mean that I like her as a character in general, but it was just, I enjoyed her a little bit more. But maybe that's just because I had Jace to compare her to. Jace did a lot of narrating in this book this time around. Apart from reading it for my live show, I was also reading this as a part of my Olympic Games readathon TBR, and this ended up fulfilling the category of Ghost King because it features vampires. Originally it was going to fulfill the prompt of bring a book back from the dead, but I switched things around, and this is what happened. The 8th book that I picked up this month was A Lesson in Thorns by Sierra Simone. This book. So, how do I talk about this book? This book is about ritualistic sex. It's about ritualistic sex. Okay, no, it centers around this girl, Proserpina, who uses the name Poe, because if I had to read Proserpina every single time, I would have probably killed someone. She goes by Poe, and she returns to England, to Thornchapel. The house Thornchapel belongs to one of her childhood friends, and there she is given a position as the Thornchapel librarian, because they have a massive library that has not been cataloged, and she's going to catalog it. And there she is reunited with her other childhood friends. They discover a sex ritual, and then they perform it. Yeah, that's what this book is about, ritualistic sex. It is what it is. Everybody in this book, so it has like, this book has 6-ish main characters. I don't know. It sort of has like 3 main characters and 3 secondary characters, but also like they're also like pretty main and important to the story. So I'm saying 6 main characters, even though it's all narrated by Poe. And all 6 of them are bi, which I love. And there's a lot of sex. Also, there's a lot of kink, because Poe is into kink and very kinky herself, and she's a submissive. She's a submissive, and jeez, I don't know how I talk about this book. Anyway, yeah, no, there's sex, there's kink, there's doms, there's subs, there's ritualistic sex at the end. I actually had a lot of fun with this book. I buddy read it with Taylor and Skylar, and it was a fun time. It was a really fun time. We actually all enjoyed it a lot. I am one that doesn't usually enjoy romance, but I think I finally found the romance that I do enjoy, which is like, I don't know, kinky LGBT romance. I don't know, man. I just really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed it. Taylor and Skylar were pleasantly surprised that I was enjoying a romance book. So yeah, we all read it, and we all also decided to read the sequel, which I will talk about later. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. The writing wasn't terrible. It was actually pretty okay. I actually enjoyed most of the characters. I enjoyed Poe. I'd seen some reviews that she wasn't great. But honestly, I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought that I was going to, and it was a fun time. It was a good time. The smut was really good. I have praise for this book. It's just praise. Yeah. The 9th book that I read this month, I listened to it on audio from Scribd, and it was done mostly out of curiosity. Nothing else. It was just all pure curiosity, and that book was Find Me by Andrea Simon. So a few months ago, I listened to Call Me By Your Name, and then I found out that there was a sequel, which I was not prepared for. And I was very curious about how the sequel would be compared to Call Me By Your Name, especially because the sequel was written like 15 years later. This is like, I think this was published in 2017 or around that time, so this is very recent. I listened to this. I gotta say, it was, so the plot of this book is very complicated, even though there's not that much plot at all. It takes place in 5 different time periods. The first part of the book is 5 years after Call Me By Your Name. The second part is 10 years after and Call Me By Your Name, and then the third part is 15 years after Call Me By Your Name. So 5, you know, there's 5 years between each part. And this is all basically a long-winded way of getting Illya and Oliver back together. And I gotta say, this novel was less pretentious than the first one. Still very pretentious, but a little less pretentious. I didn't really care about any of the characters or the plot. I was just mostly curious about how this would be handled. I looked up spoilers for this book before I read it because I really didn't care. And once I read the synopsis, I had a pretty good idea of how it was going to end. But I wanted to see how it would get there. And it was a thing that happened, honestly. I don't have much thoughts on this book. I don't know. It was very whatever. I didn't care about it all that much. I listened to it on audio. It was, like I said, when I first listened to Call Me By Your Name, it's a good thing that I was able to listen to it on audio because I wouldn't have read this on my own. Like, I would have probably thrown this book against a wall because it was really pretentious. So, I don't know. I listened to it in like a day. I enjoyed that, unlike Call Me By Your Name, which I listened to an audio file that Taylor sent me. This I was able to speed up, which was greatly appreciated. Much like Call Me By Your Name, I gave this 2 stars. I wasn't impressed. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever listened to, but I also wasn't impressed. The 10th book that I picked up, I already talked about. I reread Heartstopper towards the end of the month. I just needed a little cheering up, and by rereading it, it fulfilled one of my prompts for my Olympic Games TBR. So yeah, that was aces for me. The 11th book that I picked up this month was Feast of Sparks by Sierra Simone, the sequel to A Lesson in Thorns. So friends, Skylar finished this before I did. And she texted our group chat and she was very mad about the ending. And so that kind of motivated me to get to the ending because I wanted to see what was going on. And last night I was reading, and as I was reading, I kind of saw the end coming. I was like, oh no, I think I know where this is going, and I don't like it. And I posted on my Twitter that if this book ended the way I thought it was going to end, I was going to be enraged. Friends, I am enraged. The book ended exactly as I thought it would, and I do not like it. I hate it. It made me, much like Skylar, deduct points from the book. Anyway, I should explain. The synopsis for this book is more ritualistic sex. Yeah, no, there were less kink scenes in this than there were in the first one. And actually less sex overall, I think. This was supposed to be from the perspective of one of the other characters. So Poe narrated the first book. I was under the impression that Saint Sebastian was gonna narrate this book, which he did, but also there was still a lot of Poe narration, which I wasn't expecting. And I found myself speed reading through her chapters to get back to Saint Sebastian's chapters because I found them much more interesting. And this all culminates on them doing another ritualistic sex moment, night, thing. Anyway, this time around I liked some of the characters less. Maybe just because I felt that they were in the way from what I actually wanted to be reading about. And I wasn't all that enthralled by the plot. I found myself skimming a lot of the time towards the end. I don't know, it just it wasn't as good as the first one. But when I was originally rating A Lesson in Thorns, my rating kind of came out to like a low 5, but I decided to go with a 4 instead because I was holding out hope that the sequel would be even better. It was not. And what happened at the end really kind of enraged me to the point that I really hope it gets fixed in the next one, because otherwise, yikes. Yikes. I'm not gonna say it because I know Taylor's gonna watch this and I don't want to spoil it for her, and also I don't want to spoil it for you if you want to read it. But I don't know, I'm gonna read the third one because I'm kind of like committed to it now. I've made it through 2 books. I kind of want to read the third one and the fourth one at some point, but I gotta say I'm real disappointed with that sequel. Like really disappointed. I was expecting much more, and that ending kind of fucked me up. Yeah, no, it was just not good. It was just very yikes all around, and I kind of wish I'd chosen not to read it sometimes. I don't know. I don't know, friends. I don't know. I'm very conflicted about it all. So there you have it. That is the 11 books that I read in the month of June. Like I said, it was a very good reading month. I don't think I've ever read this many books in 1 month. I'm kind of psyched about it. I'm pretty sure it's never gonna happen again. I was really pleasantly surprised that it ended up mostly being LGBT books. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched. I'm really excited to get started on my July reads. I have some fun stuff coming up. So yeah. Thank you for spending this time with me. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave all your thoughts down below. Feel free to yell at me in the comments. I'm cool with that. And I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.